where this is going to be a shorter episode of Gentleman Villain, but I want to talk about a couple other things with Tajiri. You know, you talked about the breakup, and you talked about the kind of influence the influence it had. Tori Wilson
Yeah,
being kind of a geisha,
yeah.
and y- you know, it
Tori was what a lovely lady she
she
was. Absolutely
one
lovely.
of the
Yeah,
greatest of all time, really, at what
lovely.
she did.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier you thought maybe they cut it off a little too short. Maybe it could have
Um.
gone a little longer.
Well, I did at the time, but then it played back in perfectly. I've always, I've been very fortunate. Mr. McMahon was right on the button, and there's a lot of times, and Paul Heyman was right on the button. Always leave something before it overstays its welcome. And they knew better than I did at the time to get out of something. Because if you leave it on a high, you can always go back to it and it will be special again. You can always go back to it, but if you've let it peter out, it might not have the same effect. And they were smart enough to pull me out of, like, the first time I was the commissioner, they pulled me out of that to do a program with Edge. When I first heard it, I'm like, oh, well, that's a bit odd. But then as soon as it was explained to me within a split second, yep, I get it. And then look how many times I got to revisit some form of that character. Paul pulled me out of the thing with Tajiri, which was going great, but then we got to go back and do more with it and
Right.
do something different with it. And actually, that, not that that means anything to me, but it would be a big thing for Tajiri to win the the and when I mean, it was a big honor that I was trusted with that, but I was happier for him that we got to win the WWE Tag Team Championships in Japan. That was an unbelievable night,
It,
an incredible night.
it's
Yeah,
interesting. The idea. I don't think there's a more universal show business concept that's true than leave them wanting more. You know
yes.
what you're saying, and
Elvis
what you're
never did
saying,
any encores, right?
right?
Right.
Don't do encores if you
Elvis
don't
has
have it
left the
prepared.
building.
Right?
Right.
Leave, leave people wanting more. And what you're saying is that creates an opportunity perhaps to go back and revisit it.
Yep.
And they have the opportunity. You got a Japanese tour. You're in Japan, and you have an opportunity to reunite. Of
Yeah.
course, in the meantime, Tajiri did some stuff with Eddie Guerrero replacing Chavo, and were the tag
Fantastic.
champions.
They were
That was good
fantastic
stuff, man. That
together.
was good
Great
stuff, right?
stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, the brilliant. Two, I can't talk enough highly about Eddie, how great he was once he figured out that entertaining part of it, which he'd always had a bit, but once he really, there was nobody ever better than Eddie all round at everything. And when I, and there's people have different ideas of that. I'm looking at it from a world travel pro who can go to any country and not talk to anybody and and be able to wrestle anybody in any style, and then come to America and see, that's a different thing of completely. Nowadays, without being able to go and even see your opponents sometimes, and just to go out and not talk about stuff, and excuse me, and not talk about stuff, and just be able to do your job